Good morning, friends. So today we are going to be painting this lovely watercolor pink poppy painting. So I've already pre-moistened my watercolor tin. You can do that just with some water in your paintbrush, or you can do a little spritz with a spray bottle. I've already swatched out the colors that I think we'll need for this painting. You can see the reference photo on the previous posts that I have done. So what we're going to start off with first, I think, is the green portions of the poppy. So the stem and then the poppy seed greenery. So with watercolor, you really want to start out with your lightest colors first and then layer dark on top of them. So if you look at the reference photo, and I encourage you to look at the reference photo as you paint, and with more practice, you will be better able to tell where your colors are and where your lights and darks are in the photo. So we're gonna start off with the lightest yellow green of the greenery portion, which I will show you kind of where that's gonna be sitting. So your colors probably aren't gonna match exactly as mine, but that's okay. You just use what you've got. So I'm gonna start off with, bring this into camera. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with these pieces here. So we've got the lightest part on the top here, and it kind of goes darker as we come down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take kind of a medium-sized brush, and I'm gonna wet my water here. Okay, and then I'm gonna take that. You can dab off any extra on the paper towel. You just wanna wet the area that you want to paint here. Okay, so, and I always pre-test my colors, which I've already done. So I'm gonna take this kind of, it's called green gold. I'm just going to add it to my palette and just put some water in it. We wanna dilute it. The more water you put in it, the lighter the color is gonna be. So we're gonna take that kind of greeny yellow. If you don't have this green gold color, it's mostly a mixture of yellow with a hint of green. So you can kind of mix to get your desired effect. And then it blends in to a bit of a darker color. So I've got this nice dark green, but I don't want to go straight into that. So I'm gonna take some of the green gold color and mix it in. Then I'm gonna test that out and see what that looks like. And so we've got kind of a mid-tone here now. So I'm gonna go in on the wet paint, and I'm just gonna put that on the bottom of that bulb area right there, which that looks pretty good. Just zoom in a little for you. If I can. Come on. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see a bit of that transition in color. So we're gonna do that to all of these little guys. So we're gonna take that yellow green and we are going to plop that right on there, like that. I didn't pre-wet this one, you don't have to, since this is the first layer, it's fine. Okay, and then I'm gonna take that mid-tone green, and we're gonna do the same thing. So now it's a wet on wet paint. And I'm gonna take that same mid-tone color, and I'm just gonna drag it all the way down. And you don't need to go to a smaller brush, just because the one I have has a fairly decent tip on it, so you can do a lot with only a few brushes. So there you go, and then you bring that down. And we're gonna do the same thing to this other one that we've already done. All right, so let's go on to, I'm gonna have to mix some more of these two colors just because I'm kind of running out. So more of that green gold. Just do the same thing to the other ones. Just like that. And we're gonna take that darker green again, and we're gonna mix it with the green gold color to give that mid-tone. All right, and then if you got other lines, it's not a problem. We're just having fun. So we're gonna bring that mid green color all the way down like we did the other ones. Now we're just gonna finish off the other ones. And we're just going directly on the dry paper. We haven't pre-wet anything. You can if you want to, but it's not necessary. And we're going to be darkening this up quite a bit after it dries. So it's just about layering and layering to get the desired effect that you want. Okay, now we're almost done this section. Now this piece is pretty much dry, which that's what I want. I don't want to go and come in next to it with if it's still super wet, or is this all gonna bleed into one another. Now, since we're starting a new color, I've just gone and changed out my water. I tend to change my water as I move from color to color. So I will paint the greens and I will just paint until I'm done that section. And then if I go on and move to the pinks here, then I go out and change that water. So with the pink portion of the poppies, sorry, I'm drinking tea as if you hear me drinking. So the pink portion of the poppies, there are quite a few really light portions as the sun is coming through those poppies. So we really wanna, the pink that we want to choose, we really have to dilute it to get that lightest light. So I am going to choose this pink here. It's kind of like a mid-tone, kind of a reddy, rosy pink. And I'm going to dilute that with water to get my lightest light. And I'll show you what that looks like before I put it on the painting. So it was this color here. We're just gonna add water to it. And I always test the color out before I put it down on my painting, just to ensure that I've got the right color and the right value of that color. So you can see that by diluting it, we've gone from this really pale pink from this color here. So that's what I want. So I'm gonna take that pink that we just mixed, and I'm just gonna go ahead and apply that. And it's right directly on the dry paper. And I'm just getting fresh water and just moving that paint around. Okay. And I might be leaving a little white along the edges here for the most extreme highlights. And you can just look at your reference photo and just try to think like, all right, what do you think the lightest lights are? And it's about preserving them. So typically when I paint, I actually have what's called masking fluid, which is this liquid that you put on your watercolor paper to preserve the white portions, and it dries like a rubber, and you can just peel it off. And I use that quite often, but we're really just doing a beginner painting, so we're just gonna go without. So you can see here I've left this portion white. I'm just gonna zoom back in too. Okay, so I've left this portion a little white and over here just to make sure I've got some highlights. And this is gonna dry a lot lighter than it looks right now as well. It tends to seem a bit darker when you first put it on. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next flower. So it's the same kind of thing. The edges seem to me to be a bit more on the white side. So I'm gonna start at the bottom here on the dry paper. And I'm gonna block all that in. I got cat hair in it. And then I'm just taking some fresh water and I'm just diluting those edges a bit because I want to keep some of my brightest highlights here at the top. Okay, so I've preserved that white along that edge. And we're gonna do the same thing up top on this petal. I'm gonna stop right about there, and then I'm gonna dilute that edge with just a bit of clean water and just dry off a bit of the excess on a paper towel, and we're just gonna soften that edge up a little bit. Okay, let me dunk in some more color, and we're gonna finish off. the petal. Okay. Alright, so keeping a bit of that white edge. And I'm just rinsing off my paintbrush in between. Grabbing more color. All right. Now this petal back here is quite strong. It's a very deep pink, so that's why I've just added a little bit more of that pigment into the mixture, just to get it a bit stronger. Okay, so now that's a fairly hard edge right here. So I don't want that crisp edge. So I'm gonna clean off my brush, get off the excess water, and then I'm just gonna come in and I'm just gonna go along that edge, and you can see it softens that edge up, so it's not a hard line. See? And I'm going to do the same again with this one, because this seems to be drying a little bit on the hard edge side. And you can go back on your previous petals and you can soften up those edges by doing just that, getting your brush clean and just wiping away that extra paint. And you can kind of lift and blend it out a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. So we're gonna do this top petal up here, and this seems to me some of the lightest, especially along those edges. So I'm gonna be fairly light, I think, on this flower, or at least try to be. And as we build those color up too, we'll get some contrast, and the more color we build up, the lighter those lights are gonna appear, which you'll see as we proceed. All right. So as I paint, I watch my reference photo, and I really want to look at where those light portions of the flower are, where those darks are. And in watercolor, if you paint it too dark, it's hard to go back and get those lights, which is kind of a disadvantage of watercolor. But as you learn, you get more in tune with how you need, the steps you need to take to lay down the paint to really preserve those light areas, because that's really gonna allow you to have kind of a glow in your painting, which who doesn't want that? I don't know. I love glow. Okay, so that looks good. I've kept quite a bit of the white on this edge. All right, so I'm gonna go in and fill in these missing stems that I missed. Get just some of that green down. Zoom out again so we can see. All right, one more stem. And you want to be careful because I just painted this. So if I go in too close to that pink, we are gonna bleed green into the pink, which is not really what I want. So I just want to be careful how close I get to that pink, because that's how you get some muddy colors. So again, not touching that pink, getting close, but not close enough that I'm gonna bleed into that area. Okay, that looks good. Just soften those edges a little. Okay. Fantastic. So I'm going to change out my water. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that these green areas are pretty much dry, we're going to add a new layer to it. And if yours aren't, a nice little trick is you can get a hairdryer and just dry your painting, and then you can go in and put a new layer in, which is really handy because sometimes I don't have the time to wait for the paint to dry. So yeah, just any hairdryer. All right, so we are going to mix a new color. So I'm just gonna move this over. So now we're kind of wanting to kind of darken that area up a bit. So I'm gonna take this dark green again. I'm gonna add in some spring green. And again, that's kind of a mid-tone green. If I just went straight into this deep sap green, you can see it's quite a bit darker. So I just wanted to dilute that a bit, add some kind of a brighter green to it. So I've got kind of three that I'm working from. This yellow, it's called gold green, and this is spring green, and this is a deep sap green. And it just goes from lightest to kind of a mid-tone to a dark. But like I said, use what you have, just experiment with color. And as you paint, you're gonna learn more what you have and how to go from there. So I'm gonna use this mid-tone, and I want to mix up a dark as well, because we're gonna start darkening up. I'm just adding a bit of water to it, just getting a good amount of paint on the palette. Okay, that's probably gonna do me. I'm gonna do a little bit more here too. And just testing out that color. That looks good, I think. So like I said, you're working from the lightest to the darkest, and you wanna layer those dark colors onto the light ones as you go. Okay, so we're gonna switch back. I don't have enough room to show you both the painting and my swatch paper and palette. Sorry. All right. So we're gonna start with this guy again. If you can see in the reference photo, up here is the lightest, and it kind of breaks off about here, and you just kind of go into a dark stem. So I'm gonna take that mid-tone green, and I'm gonna bring it up to about this line. And just painting on the dry paper. Okay. Down. We're gonna clean our brush, get a little dry, and then we're gonna come in and soften up that edge again. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that yellow green, that light yellow green that we had earlier, and I'm just gonna bring that in there. Really want to kind of blend those colors in. Just like that. Because I don't want that hard edge. Just softening that edge. Okay, I'm gonna take that dark green and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna put it right at the bottom here. Maybe up the middle a little bit. Clean off my brush and just pull that paint down. Zoom in again. All right. And you can just leave that to bleed into itself, mingle, do its little fun watercolor dance. You can see it's kind of traveling up, and that's perfect. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our other ones. So we're gonna take that mid-tone, plop her on there. Okay, pull the color down. Okay, clean off the brush, get some more of that yellow green. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna plop it right at that edge. And that kind of just dissolves that hard edge. Take the darkest green. There we go. And get that in there. Beautiful. And then just pull that down. Let's just keep moving along. And now this one has some really strong darks. All right. Right in here. Okay. So I'm just gonna get some clean, my paintbrush clean. I'm gonna just soften that edge up right here. Take my dark green. I'm gonna need a bit more of that dark green color. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. Okay. Pull it down. This one is also quite a dark color. So I'm going to take quite a bit of that darkest green. And plop that right on there. And I'm going to have to go up and soften that edge up there too. I've gotten a little sloppy there, wipe that off. And if you catch a mistake and you've gone over the line and you're not happy with it, just try to wipe it up with a piece of paper towel or your finger. Often you can kind of clean that edge up if you catch it fast enough. Okay, so we're gonna clean our brush. So we're gonna go in and get this edge a little water to soften that up. And just going in with more of that darkest green. And it's gonna dry lighter than what it appears now. It kind of appears almost black, but it's not gonna dry that dark. So don't worry if it looks too dark. All right. And then you just want to be careful. This is probably maybe still a bit wet to be painting right up against this, but I'm going to be daring and do it anyway. More of that dark green. I need more. Okay. See, it's too wet. It's going to start bleeding into the other greenery, and that's what happens if you're too impatient. It's fine, we're just gonna go with it. If you want, you can come in and take a clean brush, try to wipe it up if it bothers you. Kind of try to blend in some of that color. All right, that looks good. Okay, we're gonna go in and darken up. So the stem on these ones, if you look closely, the darkest dark is actually up here by the flower. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that dark green up top here. Look at the reference photo. It's very hard to kind of see with untrained eyes, but the darkest is here. So I'm actually gonna just clean my brush off and just sop up some of that extra water, and then I'm just gonna run it down like this, and the color will kind of blend itself along that edge. And if it kind of dries out, just dip it into water again and pull that color down. And I'm just gonna take more of that dark green, and we're just gonna plop that right there. Take a clean brush and then just pull that color down a little, and then you get that kind of nice transition between this lighter color and this dark color. We're gonna do the same thing to this stem over here. We're gonna make the darkest portion up top. And then we're gonna clean our brush, dry it off, and then just pull that color down, just like that. Okay, there we go. Take some more of the dark, just put it in there. Clean our brush, and then blend that in. That looks really good. Okay, we're gonna zoom out. And that's what we're looking like. So, I'm just gonna plop a little bit more color down on here. Beautiful. All right, so make sure you go and grab yourself a clean glass of water. We're gonna start on the darker portions of the poppies. So that means we need to mix some more color. Okay, so we're gonna go in and maybe do some of the darkest leaves, and what we need is kind of a purpley bright pink. Maybe tone that one down a bit. All right, so now that we've got this color, we are gonna go back to our painting. And we're gonna go in and do some of those darkest darks. Like these folded petals. And these are gonna be hard edged. So you don't want to soften those edges. Now that I'm seeing that, it might be a bit too dark. So I'm just gonna take some paper towel and just dab some of that paint off. I'm gonna have to dilute it a bit. All right, so I just diluted that a bit with some water, and let's go in. Yeah. I think we went a bit too dark. But that's all right. You just add some more water to it and you are good to go. And we're gonna try to lift some of that with some clean water on our brush. There we go. That's the nice thing about with watercolor, you can lift some of it off if you need to, just with a clean brush and some paper towel. All right, along this petal here, we're gonna go ahead and soften up this edge. All right, let's soften that edge here with some clean water. All right. Just gonna darken up this petal a bit because it dried lighter than I'd like it to. All right. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing to this little folded piece here. Blend out that edge. And then we're gonna go over to this section. We're gonna paint in a nice crisp edge along this folded section. And it goes all the way down like that. And we're gonna wanna blend over on this side. So get a clean brush and just blend out that edge. And this section on the very edge is quite light, so we just want to make sure we're not going too far into this area. this little dark shape in here. Just like that. Okay. And then we're gonna go on to this main flower here, and we're just gonna go over some of those lines that we had in the original sketch, and we're gonna just paint in some of those detailed lines like that. Grab some more paint and just look at the reference photo and see what direction those lines are going, kind of where they are. We're just loosely putting those in like that. We're actually going to go in with more color once that dries to kind of shade the area, but I just kind of wanted to get those details in a bit. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go on to the next flower. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna get those darkest darks along the folded edges of these petals. Just like that. And just looking on the reference photo, seeing where those dark areas are. Okay. And we're gonna have to soften up that edge right in here. Just like that with some clean water. I'm gonna bring you in a little bit. Okay. Now, if you look closely on the reference photo, there's a bit of a highlight in the middle of this petal. So we're gonna go in along the edge here. Like that. And we're gonna try to keep the middle section here without any paint on it. Okay. And now to blend out this tip here. There. Good. Grab some more paint. This area is quite dark in the back, so we're gonna get quite a bit of pigment on our brush. It's a very strong color right there. Right along there. But it does get quite light at the edge. So we want to get our clean brush and go ahead and blend that color out again. Okay. Again, clean our brush. Blend out those edges. Just pick up some more of that dark. No, I did go quite strong in that area. I might have gone a little too much. So I'm going to try to take out some of that with some clean water. Yeah. Just dab it with a bit of paper towel. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now to go. And if you run out of color, just quickly pick some more up from your palette. Water it down if you need to. All right, now for this section here. Now just be careful along some of those edges because you're gonna bleed into that area if you get too close, and we're just going along, softening that edge. Some of those veiny details. Draw those in. Okay, beautiful. All right, so this section we're going to start on those darkest darks again. Okay. And now this edge is going to be lighter right up here. So we want a nice, strong, crisp line. And we're going to blend out the top because the sun is hitting that and making it quite a bit lighter. And then just bumping that color back up. All right. You can see I haven't changed out my brush. I've used the same one for the entire painting. Okay, I think that section looks good. Cleaning my brush, softening that edge. Now we're going to go ahead and paint in just those line details again on this petal. There. Okay, softening that edge. There you go. All right. All right, go change your water out and I'll meet you back. All right, clean water. Now we're gonna do some of the just some last kind of shading areas. If you look on the reference photo, we've got some purple areas of the flower, if you look really closely. So I'm gonna take some purple pigment and mix that into the one I just used. Hold on. We're gonna switch out again here. Okay. All right, and we're gonna test that out. Okay, so that's still a bit too pink for my liking, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more purple, mix that in, and test that out next to it. And I just keep adjusting that color until I'm satisfied with it. And you know, I think that's pretty good. It's just kind of a very light purpley pink. We don't need anything too strong or crazy. By mixing that new color with the pigment that we used for the details of the flower, you're really going to have more of a harmonized painting when you pull in the colors in which you previously used. So I'm going to wet that, dilute that color a bit, and I'm going to go in where I see those purple sections. And I'm thinking I might have to add a little bit of blue to that because it's not really popping. So I'm going to take a bit of blue and I'm going to add that in. Try a bit more. Okay. Test that out. A little bit more. Ooh, I might have gone too blue on that. See, that really bumped up the purple. Okay. And if you go too far, just go back, find that pink color, and just add more into that. And that's gonna redden your mixture back up again, warm it up. Okay, let's try it now. Just gonna water it down a bit. All right. And it's a bit of trial and error. And again, we don't want those hard edges, so I'm just gonna go in and soften that up with a clean brush. Okay, pick up some more pigment. We're gonna go over to this flower here, and we've got some purple. In that section, we want to soften that up and just keep moving along, kind of where you see a bit of that purple. Okay. Clean your brush, soften those edges. Beautiful. Okay, move up to the last one. Get some more pigment. Okay. And if you look closely, it really looks like shadow now in those areas. Okay, so next we're gonna mix up the same color that we used to do all these details in the flower, the line details. Gonna mix some more of that up, and we're just gonna go over those a few areas which I want a little bit more contrast to. And you really want to go at first light, and then you can always darken up those areas later if you need them, but you can't go and get those light areas back. So always start out light and build your contrast up. Very nice. And now some of that purple is dry, and I want to go in and just darken up some of that area because it dried too light. Clean off your brush. All right, let's go back. I want to soften up some of these purple edges a bit more. It's looking really good though. See, as we add more color, more contrast, we are building up the glow. And that's what we really want. All right. Okay, so I went out and changed my water. We are going to now go over some of these petals with our pink that we had previously, and we just want to put in some shading on those petals, just kind of a light watered down glaze. Just to bring a little bit of variety to the petals, because a lot of these areas are still a bit too light. And it's just a really light wash. We're really almost done, to be honest. We're just kind of putting on some finishing touches. blending out those edges. And you can go right over those purple sections too. It's not a problem. It's just kind of unify the painting a bit when you go over those sections. Bringing a little bit of pink back. Okay, so next I'm going to go and darken some of these pieces that are kind of sitting in the back here. My camera's gonna die, so I'm just gonna plug it in and go ahead and do that, and I will be right back. Okay, so I just darkened up some of these back ones here, just to if you darken it, it pushes it back into the background a bit more. So right now I think we're looking pretty good, and we're just gonna add some quick color to the background. So we're gonna just take some of this nice green gold and the pink color, and I'm just gonna pre-wet some of the areas I want to put down some color. All right, let's just water down some of that pink, and we're just gonna drop it in, just to give the background a bit of visual interest. Just dunk some clean water. You just kind of want to be a little abstract about it. Take some of the green. And I don't want to go for anything too complicated. I just kind of want to tie the piece together. And you can mix some of that yellow in with the pink. It'll just create a bit of an orange. Plop in some clean water onto that. I'm going to put in some of my darker green at the bottom, I think. Just keeping it loose and fun. And then just taking some darker pink. Now you can be as creative as you want. Just do what feels good. Soften that edge a little. I'm just trying to be pretty accurate around these flowers. Just because I don't want to get that green into the pink. Not the look I'm going for. Now I decided to do a bit of a background because I wanted these poppies to kind of pop in contrast against some darker colors. I felt like it was just missing something. So I'm gonna take a bit of that green gold and I just want to break up some of that darker green color. And I feel like I'm usually a little more precise in the way I go about painting subjects like this, but we're just trying to have fun, just trying to loosen up, do what feels good. And the beauty about watercolors is that it's very organic and it kind of does what it wants to do. And it flows with the water. And it is quite beautiful. And now I think the last thing that I'm gonna do is maybe grab some salt and plop that down on some of the background. And what that will do is it will create some cool patterns. Just kind of softening some of those edges out. clean up some of that muddier paint right there. Okay. Okay, so I grabbed some salt and I'm just gonna put that down onto the wet paint. It only works on wet paint and it will kind of separate the pigment a bit and create some visual interest as it dries. And I do this with backgrounds quite a bit. I really like the way it works with the paint. Now some of that is kind of dry. So I'm just gonna go in with just a bit more color in some of those areas. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at it once it's dry, because it will look a bit different. Right now it's still quite wet. Sometimes the salt doesn't entirely work. You have to really get it at the right moment between wet and dry. Alright, so we have left it to dry and we scraped off the salt, and this is the finished look. I love it.